Okay, okay. Dude, I'm loving this little fairy run dancing thing. It's cute.
It's good. I like it.
Oh, we're
Um,
live already.
do
So
you?
this is our
So
cold open.
I I outpace my ice machine with consuming ice. Like my ice machine cannot keep up with the amount of ice that I consume. So like once every day or two, I have to just like freeze solid. I don't know if you can see this. There's just like a frozen solid middle in the center of my tea tonight because
Wait,
that's
what?
what I do. I just like because this buys me 4 hours of ice making where I don't have to consume the ice, and so I have to spend like a day doing that.
Wait, hold up. Hold up, brother.
Yes.
There are things called ice trays that they have
I
made
have such
for.
a small. This apartment has such a small freezer, and it's always full of food for me and food for my dog. I hate using ice trays also, and I have an ice
Well,
machine in there, and it produces about enough ice for like less than a day, right? Like it has to. It gives me like 0.75 of a day. So I have like if I let it run for 3 days, I will have 2 days of ice. So which means that like once every couple of days, I have to go and freeze solid my water bottle or like a cup full of ice. That way, just like I have to buy myself time for the ice machine to catch up.
man, your fridge sucks. Well, actually, no. It actually sounds like you're just going through too much ice.
No, I just consume a fuck ton of ice and a lot of water to go along with it. Yeah, it's just a
Uh,
lot.
what I do, the strat is I just drink room temperature water like all the time.
That sounds not negotiable for me.
I think most things are better in room temperature. I mean, if it's good enough for our room, it's good enough for our
We've
drink,
talked
right?
about this. You're an insane
Yeah,
person because, like,
yeah.
for me, like a cup of water should be like composed almost entirely of ice, and then water to just like fill in the spaces, and then that
That
ice water will last you and be cold for like an hour or two. That's the way it should be.
nah, okay, well, that's too much ice, man. But like when I was a kid, I actually used to like, when you leave your water bottle in the car and it's like warm or like kind of hot, uh, and it's like not fun to drink it. I used to love like warm water, drinking warm water, like car water
You're an
as a
insane
kid.
person, and you're kicked
Yeah.
off of the podcast. All right, speaking of that, welcome to the White, Gray, Black Weekly Manga Podcast. This is the podcast where we talk about all of the latest and greatest ongoing manga releases, and also occasionally My Hero Academia, but not this week, thank God. My name is Bruce. I'm the proprietor of the White, Gray, Black YouTube channel, and with me again this week is Gautam, my partner in weekly manga crime.
What's up, warm water boys? Rise
Uh,
up.
this episode titled "Warm versus Cold Water, which is better?"
Okay, no, that's
The
not fair.
obvious
That's not
answer
fair.
still correct. Please keep in mind as a disclaimer, major discussions this week we will be talking spoilers. That means up to Ginka and Gluna, chapter 15, Nan Hao and Shang Feng, chapter 98, and Sakamoto Days, chapter 100. Start off with the news. Part 9 of JoJo's title has been announced. It is called JoJo Lands.
That sounds that sounds like a bad title
It's great, more
because
JoJo. I mean, I don't know.
I
Are
yeah,
any of
yeah,
the titles for JoJo good? Is
yeah,
JoJo
they're all
Lion?
good.
Is it JoJo Lion or is it JoJolian? I've always
I
wondered.
think it's JoJolian, but you watch more than me. But
I
like I mean, wait, by title do you mean the JoJo's name or is it like the Stardust
No, we don't know
Crusader?
the JoJo's name or the setting. Although the picture that was released had a background setting that I think someone was saying looked like either Canada or North America or something like that. I don't remember exactly where I saw that, but
Oh, just like Joseph from Part Two,
yeah,
back in the Bronx.
yeah. Except they only spent what one episode slash a couple of chapters, maybe 2 episodes
Yeah,
in
in
New
the
York,
U.S.
and then everything else
Didn't they
was
go to Italy?
somewhere else.
Didn't they go to Italy? I don't
Yes,
remember.
that one they go to Italy in that one for the training and stuff.
But hey, sweet.
Yep,
I'm
more
glad
JoJo.
JoJo's still running.
Yeah, interesting. So Araki is 71, I want to say. He's, let me see. He's 62. Okay, I was close. He's 62, and he's still going to do another JoJo. The last one took him 10 years, I think. Each of these has taken him 5. I think part 1 and part 2, maybe not quite 5 years, but almost all of them past then have been 5 or more years. So, might
Really?
be
What's
the
his
final
release
part of
schedule?
JoJo. It might be. It might satisfy the obsessive compulsive in some of us to do 10 parts. That's a nice even number. People would like that. But we'll see. I'm excited to see what it is. Maybe it's something I will pick up and read from the beginning. Just to... Because I have not... I mean, when the last JoJo started, I was fresh out of college, which means I was just starting to watch anime. There was no JoJo... there was no JoJo anime when the last part started being written. So JoJo's fan base has grown massively. So this has the potential to be the biggest in the West, at least. But it definitely, I think, just the biggest start to a JoJo.
Neato.
Yeah. So we got the Jump Fiesta this week. Last week, I unsuccessfully tried to predict things that would happen. I said, we'll get a bunch of anime and a bunch of movies, and it was a lot less than that. And then I remembered, this is for like shitty gacha game announcements and pachinko machines too, and there was kind of a lot of that. So we'll go through the highlights and sort of bigger stuff here. Blue Exorcist gets a season 3. Blue Exorcist is a fairly long series. I want to say it's 250, 300 more chapters. Only got 2 seasons of an anime. Season 3 got announced. Any thoughts on Blue Exorcist?
My thought is that I have no thoughts. Is like,
Yep.
It's just completely generic and uninteresting to me. But good for the fans who actually like the series. I'm glad that they're finally getting a season 3, kind of like how Bleach did for their last arc.
Yeah. There's a lot of... I think we'll just see more and more anime over the years. That's like such a stupid, simple statement, but...
Yeah, like, you mean like older anime or things that didn't get like another season, right? Like
I mean, I just think anime and manga are on the up, right? They're year over year. Have been growing for the past, I mean, honestly, 15 years, right? But more realistically, in the past 4 or 5, they've been the acceleration has been a lot faster. So I think
they've blown up. Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna get more they're gonna have more big studios. We're going to get... I mean, how many seasonal anime come out every season now? We don't get all of them in the West. We get 20 or something, which is still a lot, but there's 40 or 50 seasonal anime every single season.
And I watch all of them. God, could you imagine? Oh, man.
I can't imagine watching more than 3.
Yeah. Blue Exorcist to me, I don't remember any of the characters' names anymore because it's been a while, but it started out fun, but I felt like it got a little bit duller and more boring after the main conflict is resolved. Main conflict with character identity and the character surrounding him was resolved. But I don't know. We'll see how season 3 goes and if it's still popular.
Yep, we'll see.
Maybe it makes a big comeback like Bleach.
It could be. I mean, I think it's fairly popular among the sort of shonen enthusiasts, the people who like that kind of stuff. I watched a couple of episodes of season 1 and thought it was pretty generic and immature, I guess I would say. It was aimed at a younger target audience than I was at the time, and that was even 5 or 6 years ago. So
that's fair, and you absolutely won't like Blue Exorcist because I thought the first few episodes were the best ones. So.
Yeah, I don't think it's for me. In the news of things that are maybe more for me, Spy Family gets a season 2 announcement and a movie. The movie is a little bit notable because Tatsuya Endo, the manga author, is writing and assisting on that movie, which I think is a good choice, going the sort of Oda route of the last couple of One Piece movies, where he's either written or assisted heavily on them. So yeah, I mean, Spy Family, season 2, movie. How do you feel?
Honestly, I think this is an even better fit than One Piece or other shonen movies, because I feel like a Spike's Family movie can really do any kind of like fun, chaotic spy plot line with all the characters involved without having to change the world drastically. Because I
Right.
think One Piece movies, you can't really influence the world at large within that universe, whereas Spy X Family doesn't really have like a world at well, it does, but you know, it's like you can do whatever the hell you want without having to tiptoe around any kind of world building things or like power levels breaking other power levels, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah, I agree. Spy Family's very even just the manga now, it's I don't want to say it's low impact because that makes it sound negative, but like it's much more slice of lifey than it is action or spy, even though those elements do exist. Even the most recent arc is maybe one of 3 or 4 spy heavy elements we've got in the past 3 years. But yeah, I mean, I think a movie is great. I think in general, it's already kind of broken up into movie-sized chunks, right? Most of the arcs are 2 to 4 chapters or less, which
And
is about a movie length, I would say. So
they're all kind of independent of each other if you think about it, because
right,
like the
yeah,
status quo at the end of the day doesn't fully change, and that's
usually
fine.
doesn't change much or at all. Yeah,
Yeah. So I think a movie would be perfect for something like Spy X Family.
yeah. Cool. Let's take a quick break and do sales because I just have a sales thing right here.
Sure.
Jujutsu Kaisen in first. So this is the week of the 5th to the 11th. So 8 days ago and before. A little bit, I would say, of less notable titles in the top 10 here. I would say. I mean, you have Jujutsu Kaisen at 1. Tensei Shitara Slime. That's the reincarnated as a slime at 2. This Ora no Sono no Hoshi series, which I have not heard of. This is a josei school life comedy. There's 2 of these volumes in the top 10, which is interesting.
Okay.
And then, yeah, number 4 is Marimashita Iruma-kun, which is a big series,
Iruma.
but a smaller one. I mean, Arslan Senki, which is a series I do not see in the top 10 very often. I see it often in the top 20 or 30.
An Arakawa series at that.
Yeah, and it's Arakawa again. Good, yeah, good for her. She deserves everything. Give her all the money. She's my favorite. A series I've never heard of called Makai no Shuyaku wa Ware Ware da. And then Blue Box at 8. Tokyo Revengers still at 9. That's probably the last week or two we'll see it. Kimetsu Gakuen, which is some comedy that I also have not heard of.
It looks like a Demon Slayer.
That
babies.
is. Oh yeah, because Kimetsu, yeah.
Yeah,
So
and Gaku and No Babysitters is like
Gakuen is
babysitters.
school something. Yeah.
It looks like baby slayers. Well, okay, maybe not that. Demon Slayer babies.
Yeah, or school kids or Gakuen might be. I wonder what that is. Let's learn Japanese. Japanese language school for Japanese American children. Okay, that makes sense. It's some school word. But yeah, I mean, it's just weird looking at this, right? There's Jujutsu Kaisen, and then it's kind of, Blue Box is on there. And
It's
there's
nice
not...
seeing Iruma up there.
Mm-hmm.
That was my shout out in our little award ceremony thing. As my honorable mention, because it's shonen, but it doesn't get like a lot of Western talk about it.
Yeah.
But it's really good, so it's nice to see it selling well.
Yeah, I mean, the weird thing is that usually this is dominated by, usually the top 10, top 20 is dominated by Weekly Shonen Jump or by Jump properties in general. And this one, you've got Jujutsu Kaisen and Blue Box and the Kimetsu School Kids thing. And that's only 3 of 7. And everything else here is Kodansha or a different publisher, which is cool to see. I would always like to see more diversity of manga in the top 10. Money talks. A lot of the people I follow on Twitter are big into the shoujo josei area, and they're always desperate to get more anime and more eyes on it. And I always tell them that it's a money thing, which is why we get primarily shonen. So it's good to see the top 10 sales here, showing us that the money might be flowing in a different direction. But this is also another sign of the broadening of manga and anime and different tastes and things coming into the top 10. So
Truth be told, I still think that it's dominated by shonen because, like, I think it's if you look at all the shonen
It
properties
is.
like Blue Box, Revengers, all that stuff, it's like 10 days old, whereas all these other ones that are on weekly are 3 or 4 days old. So I think it's
Hmm.
maybe just like an out of cycle thing for Jump. But
I agree. I think this is, since I've been looking at these top tens, maybe the last 6 to 9 months. This is maybe the second time I've seen it where I go, oh, this isn't, the top five isn't, One Piece, Jujutsu Kaisen, Demon Slayer, something, like Sakamoto Days. Like, it isn't all just
yeah,
shonen stuff. I think
it's
I
nice to
think this
see
is
that.
just a sort of a coincidental off week. But that being said, if there's a couple of weeks a year that are coincidental off weeks for Jump that show that other things can be sold, I still think that's good. I mean, the numbers here are not bad.
Hmm.
Selling 100,000 copies of a School Life Josei. Technically, it's 150 because the two things here are Volume 3 and Volume 3 Limited Edition. So it's more like 150K. Those numbers are great. That's awesome. So
It's always crazy for me to see the number Slime does, though.
yeah,
More than anything.
Slime moves. Slime moves units. Slime is like, I think it's maybe the largest.
I think so.
I think it's maybe the largest non-jump anime and manga property. I'm not gonna
Oh,
say that
I'm not.
solidly, but it's very, very big.
It feels like the biggest isekai, you know? Unless I'm missing something.
It might be smaller than the Kirito one, whatchamacallit.
Oh, Sword Art
Sword
Online?
Art Online might be bigger than it overall, but it might not be. I mean,
I'm not
Slime
sure.
is
Yeah,
huge. Yeah,
Slime,
it's
I,
close.
yeah, I think you might be right on Sword Art, but yeah, Slime is like surprisingly big for the plot
Yeah.
of what it is, but it is the best out of all of those. I turned into a random object isekai
Yeah, the spider one
things.
is
So
okay. I need to. I mean, Slime shows up so much and is pretty well praised. I need to check it out. I haven't really given it a fair shot. I don't think season one. I think is weird because it's like the person is literally just a slime, and then later on they become like an actual character. So
kinda, yeah.
yeah,
Uh, but yeah, check it out. It's like a 7 out of 10 watch.
cool.
That's kind
Yeah.
of fun.
So that's sales stuff. Back to Jump Fiesta. Some One Piece news, real quick. Quick prediction: Oda releases every year, sort of a this year expect this and this, and people tried to match up. His big announcement is, and this is a translation thing from Japanese that in English it doesn't work. He said, "Ah, yes, that person and that person will fight," which is, in English we would probably just say, "Oh, two people who you're very interested in will be fighting." Who do you think? Give me a prediction. Who do you think those two are going to be that are going to fight this year?
He said this year.
That'd be this year, yeah.
Oh, I guess we have two
Oh,
weeks.
sorry, 2023. This
Oh,
upcoming year.
2023. Upcoming. I guess Shanks and Blackbeard.
You think Shanks and Blackbeard? Okay.
Maybe. It seems too early, right?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I definitely was thinking it might be Shanks and Luffy, but that was my prediction.
Bro, I'm glad you said that because I definitely think they fight. Like towards the end of the series. I don't
At
think it'll
some
happen
point,
this
yeah,
year, but
yeah,
I think that'll be like the last fight of the series or something,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. Oda also came out and said at Jump Fiesta, or I guess in his little written announcement, um, he made a little joke about himself and said, I know that in the past I've said I'm 5 years away. He said, "Don't worry, I'm not
Right.
rushing." So he didn't give us another. Oh yes, now it will be 5 years. He said, "Don't worry, I'm not rushing." Most people took this to mean like, oh, 10 more years of One Piece, right? The groundhog didn't see its shadow. 10 more years of One Piece. I kind of agree with him. I think we're probably in for more than 5 more years, and 10 seems more likely. Oda's
Honestly, let
pretty
it end when
young.
it ends.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm
yeah, agreed.
let the coin fall where it may. I think we'll all see the ending coming when it does come, but for
Oh
now I'm
yeah,
just enjoying the ride.
for sure. And Oda is not. We talked about Araki, the JoJo author, being 62. Oda's only, I think, like 44, 45 or something like that. So he's
Yeah.
solidly middle aged, but not aging. I guess I would say so. He's got time.
Yeah, it's just a lot of like these long running series, and I know it's morbid to say this, but people are worried that like an author might die, and of course
Yeah.
it's morbid as hell. But it happened with Miura, which is truly tragic. And I think it just goes to show that it's not. It just goes to show how unhealthy making manga is in general. So it's
Yeah.
like it's hard to say one way or another how healthy these people are living. But regardless, even if not just for One Piece, I hope Oda's brought enough joy in my life that I just hope he's like healthy and taking care of himself. Same with everyone else.
Yeah, I mean, I think he is. Miura was an unfortunate. I mean, he had health issues for years. I mean, the last I don't know, 10 or 15 years of his life, we didn't get very many Berserk chapters, right? The majority of Berserk chapters were published from 1986 or 84. When did it start? Mid 80s into the early 90s, right? And then he did not publish a whole lot in the 2000s, very slowly. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I think Oda's healthy, incredibly rich. I think that Oda's health is probably something that Jump is incredibly interested in keeping, and yeah, I think barring a freak accident, which of course could happen, I'm not super worried about Oda's health. So
yeah, and just a quick like thing on Mira, just to talk about him for 1 second. Uh, back in the day, all this shit was analog, right? So when people
mhm.
drew manga, they didn't have digital things. And a lot of people had to adapt in the pandemic and switch to digital because of COVID.
Yeah,
Um, but like Oda, for example, still does everything on paper, and
he's
Mira,
he's does digital now.
he does digital now.
He
Okay.
made the transition later. Yeah, because I've seen he'll post the lead. He does the lead color double spread for the volumes. Almost every time he does that, there's something pops up on my Twitter feed that's a time lapse of him drawing it, and it's clearly done digitally, right? The way that
Oh,
it's erased. I mean, you can't. It
good
is
for
not
him.
like an over shoulder camera of him drawing on paper. He does it digitally and moves stuff around and tries different things. So yeah, he definitely does those digitally. I'm fairly sure. I think that One Piece is all digital now. He was a little bit late to that. I want to say maybe 2 or 3 years ago was when he made the swap. Or maybe
And
he did some stuff digitally and some stuff not before then. But yeah,
it's
One Piece
harder
I
for these
believe is
old
digital
school
now.
dudes, like Oda and Araki and Mura. It's harder for these old school dudes too, because they've been doing it on paper their whole life.
For sure. And
Um,
it's like it's a complicated thing. If you're not used to using a drawing application, it's much
mhm.
harder than uh than knowing what pens to use, etc., etc. So
But yeah, long story short is like Mura, the reason it took long, even when he was younger and more active, that center panel, like on the YouTube that you see right now, that insane
mhm.
art,
Yeah.
he did that all on paper. And if he's such a perfectionist that if he even messed up like a tiny portion that you won't even notice, he'd scrap the whole page and do it again.
Yeah.
Uh, and
He's a
that's
notorious
his mindset.
perfectionist, so yeah.
Yeah, and on paper that just makes things take forever because you scrap so many things the moment you make a mistake. Either way, Godspeed, man. Rest in peace.
Yep. Rest in peace, Oda. We hardly knew you. Speaking of the greats, as we're on Oda and Mira, Akira Toriyama, right? This is the guy
Mhm.
behind Dragon Ball. He drew the first 6 or 7. He did a bunch of designs for Final Fantasy.
And more recently, Dragon Quest. He
Technically,
does a
before
lot.
Final Fantasy, he did Dragon Quest, but yeah.
Still, yeah, he's
But yeah,
great.
Dragon Quest, Final Fantasy, Dragon Ball, Akira Toriyama. One of his series that was released before Dragon Ball, manga series called Sandland, is getting an anime. So that was one of the announcements that we got from Jump Fiesta. Did you see this trailer preview at all?
No, I did not. I haven't even heard of this.
It looks very Dragon Ball. Akira Toriyama has a very particular style, and they're sticking to it. It looks fun.
This
It definitely looks mid 90s, maybe early 80s, kind of that time range of goofy. The main character is just like a purple, spiky
little
haired.
goblin. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
little
love it.
goblin. All the goblin things are very like early 90s, late 80s kind of style. But yeah, so
I, I
that's
love it.
another thing like we were talking about earlier. We're just going to start getting more of these old manga made into anime, I think, right? And they're going back and going, okay, what can we make that'll make us money or that'll draw people in, and Dragon Ball is enormous, and Toriyama has other things he's written and done, so they're adapting that. So
Yeah, I gotta say, truly, Bruce, that Toriyama's art style, his character designs and stuff, they're top tier. I absolutely adore his little this little goblin guy looks amazing.
and I mean, it looks his style is so recognizable too, because you could drop those guys into Dragon Ball and no one would look twice, or you drop them in Dragon Ball or Dragon Quest,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
no one would think twice. Though they just look like Dragon Ball side characters or Dragon Quest bad guys or whatever. So
Yeah, looks great. Thanks for pointing it out. I'll keep this on my list.
yeah, keep an eye out for it. The next thing is Jujutsu Kaisen. The author of Jujutsu Kaisen, his name is JJ Gigi. I don't know how you would say it.
I'm not sure.
JEJE.
either.
JJ? I don't know.
I have no idea.
He announced Jujutsu Kaisen probably ending in 2023 or soon after. This will kind of continue a trend that started with Demon Slayer. Or it did start with Demon Slayer, but of the recent releases, these shonen come out, they get an anime that's enormous, they start selling boatloads, and then they end pretty soon. I like this
Me
because
too.
things that keep going after they're immensely popular are things that feel forced to keep being published and written generally aren't good. This tells me at least that Jujutsu Kaisen is sticking to its story and not trying to artificially inflate it. So once it's over, maybe I'll check it out again. I was not a huge fan. It seemed very typical shonen, a little bit more amateur than I'm looking for, than it's worth my time, but I might be willing to check it out. I know people like it a lot, so.
I liked it, but I also got bored at one point and dropped it, but not like intentionally dropped it. I just stopped reading it, so I have to go back to it.
Yeah.
And yeah, me and Bruce were talking about like reading through some stuff that we haven't read and just discussing it. Like Undead Unluck was probably going to be our next one.
Yeah, this
'cause
is
it's
the one I
getting
want to
anime.
check out. Because
We should do that with JJK at some point too.
boy, yeah. I mean, that's Undead Unluck's at 100 and something chapters. Jujutsu Kaisen's at 340, 360 chapters. Pretty long, but
Yeah, but I think it's
we've
big
recommended.
enough that and I think it's big enough that we can get a good discussion out of it. And I think it's
separated
I
into
think
multiple parts, maybe.
yeah, let's not make ourselves miserable of marathoning it. But yeah, I think that sounds fun.
Cool. Akane Banashi, our sweetheart favorite new manga of 2022 here, got 3 color pages in 2022. This is more than any other new series ever, and this is more than most series get in a single year. You'll usually get One Piece 3 times a year or 4 times a year. Maybe something like My Hero shows up 2 or 3 times a year. This is a brand new series, and it's been on the front 3 times with a color page, so that's pretty notable. A congrats and a thank you for a great series and a great new series showing up in such a powerful way.
It's so good. Yeah.
Yeah,
And like I'd even say it's at its slowest point right now, and even then it's never uninteresting. It's always good.
yeah, it's still
So,
very good. All right, one last thing in news. This is not manga related, but more anime. But although he has written manga, happy birthday today. Today's December 19th when we're recording and broadcasting this. Happy birthday to Gen Urobuchi. He's the writer of Fate Zero, the creator of Aldona Zero, and most notably known, I think, for Madoka Magica and Psycho Pass, which are two really. I think both of those probably have 10s in my mal somewhere. So.
yeah, honestly, shout out to this guy. He misses just as much as he succeeds, but he does it in such a glorious way because he always goes for the gold. Like he always tries for something ambitious, and I can't help but to respect that.
Yeah, and to be honest, when he hits it, like season 1 of Psycho Pass is amazing. Madoka Magica is awesome. Fate Zero is the only part of Fate that I would give above a 7.5, and I think Fate Zero is a 10, so I think it's great.
Fate Zero is a 10. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so good. And like his recent works have gotten a lot of flack, and it's like clear that it bothers him, and he's like a little upset that his like vision is kind of getting shit on by people. But I like that he takes big swings, and it's clear that he's passionate about everything he puts out. So
Yeah, he clearly likes what he does.
yeah, I want him to be in the industry forever. Keep making stuff.
For sure. He'll hit another gold pretty soon, I think. All
I
right,
bet.
that's it for the news. So let's get on to discussions. You're going to go first with what you're bringing this week. This is Nan Hao and Shang Feng. This is by an artist named Brownie.
Happy to do it. Yeah. So I picked a different one this week, and technically we didn't even get a new chapter this week, but I figured I wanted to bring it up. This is probably the most boys will be boys. I It's not a manhwa or a manga.
It is
It's
Chinese,
a
I
Chinese,
believe.
yeah.
Yeah.
It is Chinese. I
Don't know
don't know what
manga.
that's called technically, but I'll just call it a manga.
It is manhwa. Also, it is spelled differently than the Korean version. I think the Korean version is like MANWHA, and the Chinese version is HUA. Might have gotten those backwards.
Oh,
They're both
yeah,
called
yeah,
manhwa,
you're right.
but
I've seen
they're
that before.
different spellings in English. So
Yeah, this is absolutely amazing. All of the characters are kind of shitheads and degenerates in the best way possible. They're all incredibly funny. The whole it's not just boys, girls going to high school, and there's so many kind of like relatable high school isms that you don't really think about that you did back in high school, like just like the air dribbling or like stuff you did as a kid that you wouldn't even probably remember as an adult. This manga is manhwa is just genuinely hilarious. So look out for it every time it comes out. Since it's Chinese, it doesn't read like a manga though, so keep that in mind.
Yeah,
It
it
reads
isn't.
like a comic book.
Yeah, it also isn't like a vertical scrolling Korean manhwa. It's a little bit. It's just pages. I want to say it's maybe just posted on Twitter every week. I don't know. It's really short. I've clicked on a couple of chapters of this overall. If you're habitually online like most of us are, you'll see a lot of memes out of this one. You'll recognize some of them. It's really fun in
Yeah.
just a couple of chapters I've clicked on. It has big daily lives of high school boys, girls energy for sure.
I'm glad you said it because I was going to say that. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
if you watch Nishi Bros,
Yeah.
this is just Nishi Bros.
Yeah,
More of
Nichibro,
it.
Nichijo. It's the same kind of energy for sure.
And yeah, one thing I think, of course, this is a complete comedy, and it's very funny. If you could pick it up anywhere. Honestly, you don't really need that much context.
Yeah, not a whole lot of continuity here.
Yeah. I will say though, it does. It's one of these things, kind of like what we're going to talk about in a bit, Dungeon Meshi, Delicious in Dungeon, where it's a comedy, but then it gets real at certain points, and it does it so well. Like it flips from you're laughing to, oh, that was meaningful, or that was sad, or it executes emotional beats like it has no right to, in my opinion. And of course, like we're going to talk about Dungeon Meshi later, it does that in spades, even though it's a comedy. I think that's just kind of a strong trait that a writer can have, you know?
Yeah,
Flipping between emotions is hard to do, and yeah.
Well,
Sorry, go ahead.
I would even say that I think I have noticed that if you're a comedy writer and you're legitimately really good at comedy, that skill translates into writing drama better than being a really good drama writer translates into writing comedy. Because I think, I'm a huge Brandon Sanderson fan, right? He writes high fantasy novels. It's not a manga thing. He's a novelist, right? He writes books. And he writes very serious books, and I think they're very good, and they have cool magic systems. That's kind of his thing. And he has a super good understanding of characters and the mechanics. He's a very workman-like author. That dude cannot write a joke to save his life. He is not funny at all. He tries to write funny characters. I think it falls flat every time. I've read almost every single one of the books that he's published, and I have maybe laughed out loud 2 or 3 times. And then I can read something like Dungeon Meshi or Kaguya or another one of these like really legitimately funny things, and I'm laughing out loud much more often. I just think being comedy requires you to understand a sort of mechanical piece behind writing, I think, that means that when you write drama, those mechanical pieces translate very easily, whereas writing drama is very, I don't want to say it's easier than writing comedy, but I am gonna say it though. I think drama is easier to write than comedy. Like making someone laugh or making more people what's the best way to say it? Drama is much more universal naturally than comedy is. Comedy is much more subjective. So that means that writing comedy in a way that appeals to multiple people is more difficult than writing a drama that lots of people will understand and relate to or like. I think that is true for me. Maybe not. That's not true for everyone, but for me, it's true that I think comedy is harder to write. I think that's why you see in general just less comedic things, over dramatic things. I mean,
I think it's also a bigger risk. So tell me if you agree with this or not. And I know we're still in discussions for a bit and we're lingering, but I think this is a good discussion. So tell me if you agree with this, right? It's exactly what you said. I agree. I completely agree with. I think comedy is harder to write because of the subjectivity of it, and there are so many different forms of comedy and different things people find funny.
mm-hmm.
Whereas drama, there are relatable human emotions and experience. Like laughter is different for different people. What makes you laugh is different. But I think if like a family member dies, that's universal. You know, if
Right, yeah.
you're feeling lonely, that's universal. So it's easier to execute that and resonate with people because we've all felt that. Whereas physical comedy is only funny to some people, and like sarcasm and dry wit is only funny to some people. There's no universal in comedy most of the time.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think, and not even specifically like death or something, but I think that loss in general or a feeling of loss is like, that's I think a universal human experience. Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think the drama is based much more on a universal human experience, and comedy is on a much more personal level, and that's generally why it's harder to write them. And I think that's also why drama will always be more popular and more artistically well regarded, right?
100%.
Drama series are winning Oscars, comedy series are not. And that's because of the things you just said. Drama is part of the natural human condition, an expression of that. I think comedy is part of the natural human condition also, but it is much more individualistic and subjective, so harder to get. But it does mean that when an author is really good at comedy, they're also just, I think, naturally good at drama, because you cannot have one without the other when you're going from comedy to drama, but I think you can have drama without comedy, so...
Exactly. And I think one thing that makes comedy a little bit hard, I'm not saying this doesn't make drama hard, is that if you don't fully resonate with like loss or something like that, you can understand why a character feels loss regardless. But if a character or a scene is unfunny, it actually takes you out of the moment completely.
Right, yeah.
And it's like that robot thing where it had a million jokes a second. It took me out of it completely because I just was thinking about how unfunny it was. So I think people understand when jokes don't work, and well, a lot of people do. And I think that makes it difficult. It taints the product if you have enough flubs in a row, you know?
Yeah. I think you hit on the other big thing about drama versus comedy, and that's even when we don't fully understand or sympathize with drama, it's easy to understand. Like, have I ever lost a longtime military compatriot who was trying to help me become the Führer of a country? This is a Full Metal Alchemist reference. It's like, no, I haven't. But when when that character dies, I can relate to that loss because I understand the character, I understand loss, I understand losing a friend. You know, those are things that, especially as you get older, are pretty universal experiences. But like you said, if a joke is bad, or if a joke is something that I don't understand, there's no understanding it, right? There's no relating to it. There's no, well, I don't think it's funny, but I get it. I get what they're trying to do. It just doesn't work, and it just doesn't work. So, yeah, drama is one of those things that, like I said, I'll say it. Drama's easier to write and more. more simple to execute and more simple to get people invested in than comedy is, just because it's more specific and personalized, I think. So
Yeah, but to just put an asterisk on that, and I'm sure you'll agree, is that nuanced like drama is much harder. But as a baseline, you're completely correct.
There
Yeah.
is for sure a degree. I mean, it's weird to think about. Is there more drama than comedy? Because you look at television shows and it's like, well, there's a lot of comedies on, but I mean, even within comedies, I think the thing is that within all comedies, there is drama, and there's not always comedy and drama. This is like last thing, because we're way off task, but like in something like The Office, which is a comedy, like through and through, comedic. I think it's very funny. A lot of the things people like about that series is actually the drama part of it. The romance is a form of drama.
It's a big part. The Jim and Pam.
So I mean, yeah, exactly. And a comedy without any of that is,
yeah, no, you're right. This is off task, but I think this is a good thing to talk
it's
about.
Interesting. It's interesting, yeah,
because it affects media all over the place, not just manga.
It does,
but
yeah.
Anyway, we can slide on by.
Speaking of drama, Ginka and Gluna. It's been a while since we talked about this. I actually don't know if any of our published episodes.
I talk about it every week.
Yeah, we have talked about this briefly, I think, but not too in depth. I really liked the chapter this week, chapter 15. I thought this was maybe the best chapter we've gotten, or the best chapter since the first one or two.
Agreed. Yeah.
I think Scheherazade is a cool bad guy. I think the stuff visually that we get, where Gluna is like body horror dissected here on screen and forced back together, was cool. It was an interesting fight. It was a good fight. The flashback with what's her name, Anemone, was good. I know I've gotten on about flashbacks in the past, but this was a good flashback, and it was in the correct location before a character took action. It was good.
Bruce, I was like convinced while I was reading this. I'm like, I love this chapter. Bruce is gonna hate this. Because they did your biggest pet peeve is they did a flashback within a flashback in this page, exactly, actually, because on the right side is a flashback and they go into another flashback, and I'm like, this is gonna bother him. Did that bother you?
It didn't, because the nested flashback thing bothers me when it's a timeline. I'm trying to think of how to say this. Nested flashbacks bother me when you're just doing exposition, right? When you're just saying, I need to get this information out there, which is like we were talking about with My Hero last week, right? The nested flashbacks in My Hero are because information happened, and then there's information that happened earlier that I just thought of and I need to write, and let's get it out here. The nested flashbacks here are emotional and not information dumps, and so they work, right? I think the nested flashback thing is only really a problem when you're talking about like plotting a series or laying out the sort of order that actions or steps appeared in. In that case, you should always just try to go in order whenever possible. With this, we're seeing, what Anemone's history with Scheherazade, and then it's a flashback to add emotional impact to her history with this other child when they were kids. So in that way, it does not bother me. I mean, maybe it works better if you put the other part in front of the other. I don't think it makes like maybe a little bit, but I don't think it's a big deal, especially not because what they're going for here is they want to show you Scheherazade is bad. She killed her friends. And then when you see that she killed her friend, you go, well, you don't know how attached she is to that friend. So we'll flash back one more time and show you that, yes, they were good friends and they made a promise or whatever. I think this is okay because it's emotional.
I think personally, I think it still doesn't work, but it doesn't bother me because I'm getting used to the buck wild pace of this thing. And it's like it's 2 pages of flashbacks. So it's not going to drive me crazy or anything. But to me, this is kind of the same as the Demon Slayer flashbacks, where they're all emotional too, but it's like.
But those, the position of the flashback here is good, and it's different than Demon Slayer specifically, and I'll tell you why. in Demon Slayer, this flashback would have happened after, or I don't know. The Demon Slayer flashbacks are bad because the sword is literally cutting into the demon's neck, and then you get a flashback and you're supposed to care about them. In this case, it's like you get the flashback and then an enemy comes and takes action, and you understand why she's taking action because you were just given context for it. This is the correct location of this flashback. In Demon Slayer, that is not the correct location of that flashback. That flashback needs to go before the fight, before they take the action to fight, right? Like, and that's not super far ahead, but it's just a couple of chapters earlier is where it needs to go. But yeah.
Yeah, and we can completely stop talking about flashbacks here because this is like perfectly serviceable. But I would just reverse the order of this so I care a little bit more that this girl died, you know? Instead of she's dead and now let's establish that they were friends, you know? But
yeah, I think it might have been better that way, but I don't think it was.
Either way, it does not matter. This was. I just wanted to chat about that because I was curious of what you thought, but I think this was a great chapter too. What else did you like about it?
I think this was a better chapter because it slowed down. In general, the biggest complaint that we've had for the past 15 weeks about Ginka and Gluna, other than the first chapter, I think, is that it just breakneck speed. I mean, we're getting the content that most people would put in 3 or 4 chapters in a single chapter. I remember a couple of months ago, there was a chapter where it was like, they go down into the dungeon. They meet some new person in the dungeon. They fight a big thing. They fall down. They meet the people they were supposed to find in the dungeon. That's like all in one chapter. In like 20 pages, they do all of that stuff. In this,
too fast, yeah.
In this chapter, Luna fights Scheherazade. Anemone jumps in to try to help her. We get the flashback, and then at the very last 2 pages, Ginka shows up. Right, like this is one chapter of shonen content, and this was the correct amount of stuff.
And you know what? I think it was still faster than all other shonen content.
It's still a lot, yeah.
In a good way. Like, I think the pacing, while breakneck throughout this whole series, had something good going for it, but I can't place it in my mind. I'm not sure if you can. I didn't hate everything about the pacing. It was too fast, 100%, but it doesn't linger.
Too much is better than too little when you're talking pacing, I think.
Yes.
In general, slow is boring. So having too many things in a chapter, while it might feel a bit overwhelming, is not boring. So I think it's just better in regards to that, right? If defaulting on the side of too much going on is better than not enough. Because if there's not enough going on for 2 or 3 weeks in a row, we're just going to drop it, right? Like, especially early on with something like this. Now, at this point, I think Ginka and Luna's a little bit more solidified. Like, I'm just going to keep reading it. It could slow down or have a bad arc or chapters, and I think I would keep going. But for the first, 8 or 10 chapters, like, if you have 3 slow chapters in a row, like, people are just going to drop it. And once they drop it, it's over, right? So
you're absolutely right. I think that's exactly why. I think you nailed it. Because while it was messy and too fast, it was never boring.
Yeah, it wasn't ever. I agree. It wasn't ever boring. It was always visually interesting. It was always moving. I mean,
And I don't know if you feel this, but while I don't think the characters are super developed, I think they're all interesting characters that I like.
We at least, yeah. I mean, Ginka and Gluna especially are 2 that I just like having on screen. Gluna, because she's clearly different, right? Like these first 15 chapters, we've kind of gotten these rules explained to us from the other magic users in the world, right? The other 2 girls who are in the party, the bad guy who was in the last 2 or 3 weeks, and even Scheherazade here. They all kind of expout something about, magic works like this, and you need to do this to blah, blah, blah magic. And Luna just does not play by those rules, and I think that's always interesting to see. And Ginka is, I think, just a fun, powerful character. It's cool to see him show up and do his thing. So,
she's kind of like the prodigy, but also wild child archetype, which makes Luna inherently interesting because she learned everything different in a different way than how everyone else did.
Right. And so I think it's even cool to see all these other magic users espouse, here's how magic works. And you go, oh, cool, I understand how magic works in the world. And then Luna shows up and goes, I don't care about that. I'm going to do magic in this way. And she does it, and it's cool. And I think this is something that I think about when I think about storytelling or any kind of like structural elements of manga or movies or whatever, is that I always think that when you break the rules, quote, like this is the rules, quote unquote, right? Like if you're saying, oh, a movie takes place in a 3-act structure and you always have, rising action happens and then blah, and then complexity and something like that is like a rule, what I'm talking about. I think if you understand the rules, you can break them. And I think that's what's cool about Luna is that I think she understands the rules, right? I think that Ginka taught her what the rules are. And then I think he also taught her, those don't matter. Your rules are different than other people's rules. So in storytelling and in sort of magic using, it's interesting because I think that as a reader, we are told the rules. And once we understand the rules, it's cooler to watch them be broken, right? It's more interesting to know, if I do this, a fire happens, and then to watch someone do something different to start a fire than it is to watch someone do something different to start a fire and then be told that, no, you can't do that. Fire starting happens in this other way. The process of introducing that information is knowing the rule first and then breaking it is better than breaking the rule and going back and saying, no, it doesn't work like that. It's supposed to work like this. Just that simple little setup right there, I think makes Luna really interesting.
She is a great character. Interesting character. She'll get great once she gets development. But
yeah,
I think we're progressing towards that in a good way.
I think we are. Yeah, I mean slowly, but I mean both quickly and slowly at the same time for somehow. But
yeah, that's bizarre. I wanted to see what you thought about because I thought the paneling and the art, while simple at times, good. I thought this was the best. This was the best chapter for it. The fights were great.
It's I think the paneling and the design layouts, the environmental sort of layouts have always been really good. This one was really good action paneling. It was really good overall. I mean, I think the art here is definitely the standout, more of the standout part of the series than any of the writing, really. The writing is good and interesting, but I would definitely say, I know early on when we talked about this series, I would kind of say, if this one doesn't work, I'm interested in their second work a lot because I definitely see good ideas here, but I think this one is working. Volume 1 is soon for this, so we'll have to see how the sales of that do. I think that might be coming out like this week or next week. Usually Volume 1 comes out around chapter 20 of a series, and we're on chapter 15. So,
and I did say in my bet last time that everything except for Ichinose fame, everything except for Ginka and Luna and Akane would end by next year. I'm betting on my horse Ginka and Luna to survive. I believe, and I think it's just it has so many flaws, but it's my baby and I love it for what it is. If
it does get canceled, it will be one of those things that I think the West ends up just liking more than Japan, and that's why it's canceled. Because I was looking on Sunday, right? All these the WSJ stuff drops on Sunday, and on Reddit where they're all posted, where I usually go and look at them, Ginka and Luna it has a good amount of talk and discussion and clicks and upvotes and stuff like that. So it's not.
It has a charming quality that I can't pinpoint. That I just can't help but to root for it. So
yeah. Cool.
Last thought on this, by the way. I think all of the character designs are amazing, and I think the creature designs so far have been really cool. Like the dragon they fought, the biblically accurate angel, and especially this villain and the other villain with like the mutated face, all look very good. All cool designs. So looking forward to more out of this author and this series.
Yeah, it's good. The next thing, let me click on the right spot. Did you read this? This was a little thing I wanted to drop in here because it was a new chapter 1. This is a series called Muse no Shinzui by author Fumino Aya. Did you happen to check this one out? This was the artist girl living at home with her mom.
No, I'll read this after this.
Yeah, check it out.
Tell me about it.
Really interesting sort of girl who's kind of been not emotionally beaten down by her mother and forced to conform. There's a lot of conformity pressure on this girl, and she wants to be an artist, and her mother said, no, you're not good enough, and blah, 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 and stole her acceptance letters from school and stuff like that. And then by the end of chapter 1, she sort of begins breaking out of it. So I thought it was really interesting, potential for a lot of good drama. I thought the writing and the art was pretty good. It's just a chapter 1 I wanted to mention because I know we usually do bigger discussions on them, but I don't know if this warranted having the whole discussion for it. So, but yeah, it was pretty good.
I'm down to chat about it later, though. I'll check it out after this. Does the character have a nose or is this part of the art style?
Art style, yeah.
Okay.
No noses. No noses in this one. All right, main feature for this week is Sakamoto Days, Chapter 100. Is it a coincidence that I caught up with this on Chapter 100? Not really. I think I saw that this hit 97 or 98, and I said, it would be great for the podcast, Chapter 100 discussing. So I read all of Sakamoto Days over the past, 2 or 3 weeks. Caught up this week, read Chapter 100 was my first live read chapter. This series rocks. Somebody in the chat mentioned Bleach. If you like Bleach, I think you'll like Sakamoto Days. It's got a lot of the same kind of actiony, fun hero stuff in it. So
I don't know if you're a Bleach guy, Bruce. That's the weirdest comparison I've ever heard.
I'm not. There was a chatter in the YouTube chat who asked us about Bleach, and I would highly recommend, if you like Bleach, to check out Sakamoto Days. You can go to Viz or Manga Plus and read the first 2 or 3 chapters of it. It's
I just say read it if you like anything. It's
I mean it's universally pretty good. My overall impression of reading the first 99 chapters and then reading chapter 100 is that I like this series. There's a creativity to it that you do not see very often, and I think every fight there is a idea in writing and selling books, especially, called the what is it called? It's like the unfamiliar stranger, the unfamiliar hook, something like that, which is like, if you go and pick up a book and read the back of it, it's got to have something on the back that goes, oh, that's strange and different, right? That's like, oh, it's, vampires in Portland. It's, werewolves in London, right? There's that weird kind of strange thing in strange place, or interesting thing in interesting place that you haven't seen before. The strange attractor. That's what it's called. The strange attractor. And this Sakamoto Days strange attractor is the fact that every fight has its own strange attractor inside of it, which is cool. This fight is between a guy who uses a 3-sectioned folding blade and a guy who uses hammers to fight. And they throw each other through buildings and end up fighting through like a haunted house at some point. They fight on a roof and then inside a haunted house, and then they end inside like a old style kabuki performance where there's some really cool. I mean, the strange attractor here is that every fight has this sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Choreographed. What's the thing?
It's an action set piece, right?
Right. All these cool action set pieces and cool little props that they use. Just no one is doing it as cool as this. Every time you get to a fight, there's a prop. There's a prop on the back of a downed airplane that's awesome. One of my favorites is they just fight in a like a Home Depot essentially, and they make a call out. Even 2 of these characters are like, we need to find weapons. Like, should we use shovels or like shovels or rakes or like these things that are easily weapons? And they're just like, no. And they use like a gas powered nail gun and what's the other thing? Like like an electric lantern or something, right? Like, it's every time you think, oh, I've seen a fight like this, they're going to fight like this. And it's like, nope, it does not happen like that. There's some strange attractor in every single fight, and it's super interesting and I love it. Tell me about your experience with Sakamoto Days.
It's like John Wick. Like, it's over the top action, over the top fights. It's kind of what I wanted the movie Bullet Train to be. I like Bullet Train a lot, by the way, but it's just nuts. It's action set pieces and fights on top of fights, and you'd think the story suffers from it. And I'm not going to call the story complex or like crazy nuanced in any way. It's not, but it supports the action and comedy and fun of the series perfectly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's good. It's funny you mentioned Bullet Train. The director of Bullet Train also does also the director of Deadpool. I would say this is very John Wick meets Deadpool in a lot of ways, right? It is kind of hyper violent at times in the way that Deadpool is. It kind of has that goofy, Deadpool kills guys with a dildo or something, right? Like I could see something like that or very similar happening in Sakamoto Days.
Sakamoto kills people with pencils in his mind, like
right,
all the time.
with like a mechanical pencil, and comments on like, this is a really well made pencil, and then kills people with it. Fun, interesting stuff like that, right? The power punch glove that you have to see half a second into the future to use effectively because it has a warm up timer. There's just all these cool little things in every single fight that's like Sakamoto being disguised as a woman, and it's slowly wearing off, and so he has to try to stay hidden by like holding in his big belly.
His gut.
Yeah, there's all these funny little things in the series that make like every single encounter, like every single visual fight scene, they're so interesting. I didn't think I was going to like this as much as I did, and I will say that the first 5 or 6 chapters are just okay. Like for instance,
the first one's really good in my opinion.
The first chapter is really good, yes, and then I think because the chapter where you meet Lou, the girl who's like a part of the team. So I know what her strange attractor is in fights, right? She gets drunk, and that's her like power up, and she's like shown different types of drunk, right? It's funny when she drinks, what is it, like rubbing alcohol, and becomes like super powered. But it's funny because in her first fight, I don't remember what the strange attractor was, and I remember almost every other thing that was weird or cool or interesting about a fight, but I don't remember hers, and that was early on in the first couple. And then even when the sniper guy shows up on the team, like his thing. Sniper guy. I like him too, and I like him more after his little intro chapters. And like Lou and the sniper guy, their showing up chapters are on the first 8 or 10, and that's maybe the weakest part. And then after that, the guy goes, "Okay, I've got my characters. Now we're gonna do fun stuff."
And you know what? Let me just give like a really short synopsis, just so you understand what's going on. It's basically Sakamoto's a retired assassin from a League of Assassins. He used to be the best one, but now he's quite fat and married and has a daughter, and his wife has forbidden him from killing people. So he doesn't kill people anymore. He kind of incapacitates, but he's very capable of killing. Effectively, they just he takes in an apprentice, aka part-time worker at his convenience store he owns.
Yep.
And the plot ends up developing, and they fight more assassins, criminals, just super powered but not super powered, ultra elite assassin peoples. That's basically the synopsis of it. That's how you kind of get all these setups.
And it is
Bruce,
the power levels are not based in reality is another thing to. So Sakamoto being the best assassin means that he can punch people through walls. So this is over-the-top action in kind of the best way.
Yeah, it's like Zoro from One Piece, where he's like normal, he doesn't have a fruit, but he can still like slice a building in half, right? It's that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Bruce, what did you think of the fight? So this one was a cool fight, and I'm sure we'll see a few panels from it. But what did you think of the fight before this one with the girl who looks like a nun, kind of?
Oh, the saw blade girl.
Saw blade girl, yeah. Yes. She has a giant saw blade as a weapon.
Yeah, still a fun one. It was because it was the saw blade girl, and was she fighting this guy, the folding blade dude, or was it?
No, she was fighting like a courtesan. Like
that's right. The girl that was with this guy. Yeah. I remember this now. Also good. Yeah, I like that they fight inside the Torii gates, and she cuts through them. That's a great panel.
And
from 2 or 3 chapters ago.
I love the scene where basically she gets like a chain from the saw around her leg, and it's just like reeling her in like a fish into the saw, and it just like shows a splurt of blood. It was brutal, and like as brutal as you can get with shonen without actually showing the gore. Really cool.
Yeah, and this series doesn't really shy away from gore, but it's a little rare. Do I have it? I have it here. Yeah, this guy where the
cheek.
The hammer guy loses his fingers, right, in this fight.
Oh,
even though he wins, and that's just like it's shown, and it's. I mean, it's not like it's brutal, but like it's the violence is not without. I mean, a guy loses an arm at one point, and it's not just glossed over. So, it's it's a weird series in that it's not based in any kind of reality, but also it is kind of realistic. Like, okay, your arm gets cut off, you lost an arm, you don't have it anymore. How are you going to deal with it?
I think what's strong is that this is like you don't really think about power levels or what is logical. You
Mm-hmm.
kind of just go with the flow in this series because anything can really happen, right? Like he used a hammer to rip out this guy's cheek and teeth, like last chapter. You see the
Yeah,
scar over
yeah,
there.
yeah. The scar too.
But
Yeah,
Sakamoto can get punched through a train and be fine. You know, you don't really worry about it because it's over the top.
yeah. I mean, even this at the end of the chapter, I was like, oh, okay, he got him, but like, but did he really get him? Because it kind of is like, you never know, right? Someone could take a big attack, and it's hard to know if it's like, well, is that an actual impactful attack or not? I think in this case it is, just for the story beat, but it's
What
great.
do you
Yeah,
think of this current arc with the school and whatnot?
the school stuff is good. It's so weird to me to sort of speed read 99 chapters of something and then now have to go week to week, because there's really only been 3 arcs. I mean, there's kind of like the intro stuff. There's a hit out for
Yeah.
Sakamoto, and that's kind of the first 30 chapters. And then they're on this plane for 20 chapters, and they're in the school for 20 or 30 chapters.
And then there was the criminal stuff before it, and I guess
Yeah, the
a
criminal
mini
stuff
arc.
and the attack on the JAA or the JCC or whatever it is. I guess there's more like 4 or 5, but the school stuff was good. Yeah, I mean, it feels really consistent to me, so it's hard for me to say like, oh, it was better than this or better than that. It's like the whole series is just good and consistent, so I liked it. Yeah,
And while I don't know much about these assassins, really, like even the Hammer guy, he's a fun character. I don't really know much about him,
mm,
but like when they attack the JAA, there's this old man
yeah.
from a one shot from the author with a katana who seems like very senile, but he's kind of just this powerhouse
He's like the strongest
JO unit.
person, maybe other than Sakamoto, maybe stronger than
I
Sakamoto.
think he's stronger than
I
Sakamoto.
think
He like
possibly, yeah.
Yeah, he fucks up both the villains and they have to retreat. Like the main villains of the story is just this random side character just destroys them and then they
Yeah.
leave. Uh I appreciate that they use like different characters like this with so we just don't see Sakamoto like fighting every fight, you know. You
It
get
is,
like a
yeah.
lot of creativity. Yeah.
It is, the author definitely understands that Sakamoto himself doesn't, his strange attractor is that he's fat, kind of. I mean, like, and it's a funny power up that when he gets like hit really hard or knocked through a wall or like needs to power up, he just like loses all his weight for the fight and becomes like young, like loses his mustache, loses all of his weight, becomes.
Yeah, he does lose his mustache. I didn't even realize. You're
I
right.
noticed that the first time. I was like, wait, where did his mustache go? And yeah, every time he loses the weight for his power up, he loses his mustache. But
He goes does a quick shave. Yeah.
yeah, but it's one of those things
Um,
where like Sakamoto doesn't really have like a particular fighting style. He's good at all styles, so he's almost always like using his environment or using a tool in an interesting way, which again is like the cool thing about this series is the way those things are choreographed. But yeah,
I
it's
want
great.
to know. I want to know how dark you think this series is, because for me, I don't think it's dark at all. Even though there's a lot of gore and death, because
Yeah, I
like
agree.
assassins die, but that's their job, and the story treats it like, hey, it's their job, they're dead. And also, they're like, there's a lot of set piece fights where they like move around, and the civilians are usually like just still doing their job. Like this is the norm, you know?
Yeah,
Like it's like, oh, these assassins aren't fighting, and they paid for their meals, so okay, see ya, have a good time, come back again, you know?
yeah. It
Uh,
doesn't. A sin that I think is committed by a lot of shonen that gets them in trouble
mhm.
is being overly serious. I think
Yeah.
My Hero Academia has run into this. I think a lot of series, especially towards the end, they go for that drama because again, it's kind of easier to write, and the funny stuff is harder to write. But you're right. I this series is violent, but I don't think it's dark. I mean, other than violence, there's not really any other. There's not really any other darkness in the series, right? There's not any like. I'm trying. There's not a whole lot of like abuse or like emotional manipulation. It's very kind of straightforward and simple, which I think
Mhm.
is to its benefit. So,
And it's not trying to be anything else aside from just dumb fun.
mhm.
Uh, and I think this comes back to what we were talking about earlier with comedy versus drama. Like you said, My Hero is being too serious. Uh, I agree, but I also think that's because it didn't have the nuance we were talking about earlier to where we care about the stakes. So when it's being dramatic, it doesn't feel earned. Would you think that's
Correct.
the
Yeah.
reason you feel like the shonen pitfall exists, is because you don't feel like the serious moments are earned, or
No, I don't think it's that. I think it's more just an issue of what I expect out of a shonen is I expect it to be fun. Um, I
yeah,
am not looking to get into overly dramatic things. I'm not looking to, not necessarily that I'm not looking to be challenged, but it's like I'm not looking to go into something and be like, oh, I feel so much pity or I feel remorse, or those aren't the emotions I'm looking to get out of shonen. Like I want hype fights, I want fun, cool battles. I want to be smiling when fights happen. That should be satisfying. And I think when they go too serious, they lean too much into, oh, an important character died and it's sad, and or this person lost a fight or lost a friend, and I think those things. Well, I think that they can be handled well. I think that they completely remove the sort of satisfying, fun, hype emotions that I want out of shonen. I think it's different for everybody, but when I think other people probably say like no, when I think when shonen gets serious, it's at its best because it's so much more impactful, so much more emotionally charged or whatever. But for me, I don't think you can do this sort of overly serious
I think it's
style
possible.
and get the other things out of it. So
You just have to be a good like Oda going Mary's death. Okay, sorry, One Piece spoilers, just real quick.
it's 20 years ago,
Uh,
but yeah,
yeah, going Mary's death, Ace's death. I think those were done well, right? Those are serious,
yeah.
and but I felt like One Piece earned that, and Oda can capture those emotions well. Whereas I think like My Hero Academia spoilers coming up now. Bakugo getting
I
a
have a
hole
spoiler
punched in
thing.
his chest.
By the way.
Yeah, just in case, Bakugo getting a hole punched in his chest, I felt nothing.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
those series moments didn't,
I
you
will
know.
say to respond to your One Piece thing.
Yeah.
Um, I I actually do not like, what is it called, the Marineford War or whatever.
You didn't like the war arc?
It's fine. It's not one of my
Oh, I
favorite
love
arcs, and I think because it's a little overly serious. Um,
really, huh?
yes, I think something like Alabasta, which has sort of serious chapters, but there's I don't know. The most serious part of Alabasta, oh fuck it, we'll just throw the spoilers text up. The most serious part of Alabasta, right, is like Luffy using his own blood to punch and beat Crocodile, and then the bird guy carrying the bomb up, and you think he's dead, but he's not, which is whatever. Um, and
Yeah, that was fun.
all of those don't lose the element of fun and hype and satisfying in a way. So I think it's when, and I mean, Marineford arc is good, and it definitely is still hype and satisfying, but it does lose the fun for me a little bit, and that's kind of where. Again, it's just I still like that part. It's still a good part of One Piece. It's just not my favorite because when I go into a shonen, I really want those three things, right? I really want it to be fun. I want it to be hype. Um,
Ruth,
fun and hype are the
remember,
two big things. So if you lose
remember
one
to
of
put
those
that.
for me, I'm out.
Yeah, remember to put this in your hot takes because that's a hot take, my friend. I don't disagree with you. I personally loved Marineford, but I can see where you're coming from. But I think the serious moments in that arc kind of raised the stakes for me, which
Mm-hmm.
enhanced that arc. It made everything seem life or death, and it was during that arc.
I
But
agree.
anyway,
It's good. I mean, I will say that the dramatic moments in One Piece are generally pretty good. Like Robin's
it,
like "I Want to Live" is absolutely one of my favorite
that's and
parts
not
of all One Piece. But the thing is, the immediate response to that is fun, right? It isn't
yes,
just serious, right? The response to that is like the One Piece. They're the Straw Hats like lined up on the roof. It's hype. It's fun. It doesn't having that dramatic moment doesn't remove
Oda mixes it.
the hype and the fun.
Yeah,
And I think that a lot of authors, you're right, just aren't good enough to sort of be able to be dramatic and hype and fun all at the same time. So they often just get away with they get away
it,
from what I like in shonen. So
yet again, One Piece is cheating because, like, I think everyone finds the pivot point in One Piece to be Arlong Park, where it goes from good to great.
yes, that is where I
And
agree with that.
Nami's emotions and that whole situation mattered a lot in that, but also Oda had a really fun fight with Arlong, right? Where Luffy stretches his foot up at like a million feet up and destroys the house.
Right, yeah. It got
Uh,
serious, and then it did not remove the fun from the rest of the arc or the part.
exactly.
Yeah, and I think in Sakamoto Days' case, for instance, this chapter was a pretty serious chapter, I would say. But there was still I don't have the page, but when they're in the little kabuki theater, the performance thing, during that part, like there was still like
Yeah.
a joke and some fun. Like there was still fun, funny, jokey things happening inside all this hype action. And I think that Sakamoto Days is really good at that, really good at balancing the sort of it's a serious fight and it is life and death for these characters, but it's also fun and it's also interesting and it's also hype. So it has all those things that I really like in shonen that keep me invested. So
Yeah, like the hammer guy like tips a waiter this chapter, you know, like
yeah,
because
right.
they fought in a restaurant. Yeah, it's like fun.
Yeah, and yeah, the Sakamoto Days is very very good at that. Anything else to say on Sakamoto Days before we move on to our one more thing?
Our last thing. No, I think we said all that needs to be said.
Yeah,
But I'm glad you're liking it, man.
it's good. It's simple. I mean, it does not take brain power to consume Sakamoto Days. It's good.
Yeah, I agree.
Cool.
All right, let's mosey on.
Get to the end part. One more things. I'll go first. This is what I've been reading since I caught up on Sakamoto Days. This is Dungeon Meshi, Delicious in Dungeon by Ryoko Kui. It's pretty good. I am 20 chapters in, I think, now. You recommended this to me, and I've saw that it got this is getting an anime adaptation by Trigger, which
I can't wait.
I will say as a comment does not fit this series in the slightest. So I'm curious of how that's going to happen. But it's pretty good. It definitely has gotten better in the last 5 or 8 chapters. On the like we were talking about humor and drama earlier on. This is a series that starts out mostly humorous, and when it gets more serious, I think it's actually better. The last couple of chapters, one of the main characters got seriously hurt, and they had to sort of retreat and wait for her. And there's flashbacks of the very first chapter, they lose one of their party members, and their goal is to kind of dive into this dungeon and find her again. They meet the bearded. Is he a dwarf? He's a dwarf, right?
He's a dwarf. Yeah,
Yeah, this
They have,
bearded dwarf guy, and he
one of these
teaches them
traits.
how to cook things in the dungeon, how to make delicious things, and it's like all like I was a professional chef for 3 years, and it's all like kind of right. I mean, obviously it's like fantasy creatures, but everything they talk about is like, yeah, okay, that is how you make pickles, that is how you fry that, that is how you make soup or whatever. So it's fun, it's good. I'm gonna keep reading it. I am definitely still up in the air on a Trigger adaptation of this, but we'll see. I don't think it fits the style of the series, but I don't necessarily think that it'll ruin it. It definitely could bring a new added dimension that could be fun. So,
If you haven't already, people listening, type in Trigger Delicious in Dungeon PV in
Yeah.
YouTube. They made a
the trailer
short
was great.
preview thingy before the anime was even announced. It looks great. So I have faith. I will say on Delicious in Dungeon, Bruce, this series is pure magic, in my opinion. I'm glad you're reading it. The beginning is all cooking and slice of lifey, but the comedy beats hit. The characters.
It's funny, yeah.
I know you played D&D, Bruce. I played
Yeah.
D&D. If anyone has played D&D, this is a D&D party.
I mean, there's a whole chapter dedicated to the thief rogue character, like avoiding mimics and still getting caught by a mimic, and is like in a trap room and trying to figure out how to get out of the trap room with the mimic. It's all it is very D&D inspired, like very. And how do I say, like, if you've played D&D, it is based on real human people playing D&D more than it is just based on high fantasy, like Lord of the Rings or something, right? This is much more about people at a table having fun and doing what these characters are doing in the dungeon than it is just high fantasy. So, but it's great.
I'm glad you said that because I was going to. You're reading my mind this time. It is very much just a D&D party where they're all goofy, having fun, and kind of failing their way upwards, and failing in general. While like more serious try-hard parties around them are getting destroyed. And it's just a really fun series. I don't think there's one unlikable character. They're all incredibly endearing and very
Yeah.
different.
I do think the
And
lead dude on the front cover here is pretty boring right now, but
he won't be. Yeah.
he isn't so bad that he isn't unbearably boring. He's just kind of less interesting. Like Marcille, the elf girl, is like
She's the most.
clearly the standout character in my opinion.
She's everyone's favorite. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, she's the straight man in the Goofy party for most of it, and it's one of the best. I really want to make a video on this, but I'll tease it here. She's a tsundere, right? But not for romance, and I think that's really interesting, and I really like that. I really want to make a video going into how Marcille is like literally a tsundere for the dungeon, right? The dungeon is the main character of this series, and she loves it but won't admit it in a very tsundere way. I love that. It's so interesting that I was thinking about that, and I was like, she literally just won't say that she likes eating monsters and likes the dungeon and stuff. So I wanted to go into the world's best.
It's not like I want to
tsundere.
eat you or anything. Yeah.
Exactly.
And forgive me if I pronounce this wrong, because I've only read this and I've never talked about it with anyone. But Laos, I think is how you say his name.
The lead guy,
the main character. He's very fun. He's probably my second favorite character. He's great as it goes. I think two things to mention about this series. I'm not going to keep it long. Marcille and all the characters really are so incredibly. I love their designs. I love Marcille's designs because it's not a conventional, like every single manga or comic book that draws an elf draws them as this sleek, uncompetible beauty,
Yeah.
like perfect in every way. Marcille has like chubby cheeks and makes a bunch of different like reaction faces. She's not like elf beautiful, right? She looks like she looks good, but she's just like a person.
Yeah,
and I really like that.
I agree with you. I think there is a sort of, the designs are all intentionally plain. I will say they are not plain from a lack of trying to be interesting. They're plain because they're normal people. Like I just met I guess it's the dwarf girl who used to be a part of their party, and it's cool to see that because she's kind of like on the thicker like side as a person. And I mean, like even the main dude is sort of like, okay, he's not, I don't know, I haven't seen him take his armor off, or maybe I have, but he's not some like, oh, he's jacked underneath in like he would be in like an isekai or something. They're all just sort of very like plain versions of who they are, but that makes it more interesting because the dungeon is the interesting part, and putting plain people against a severe dungeon and monsters and creatures is more interesting than everything in the world being severe and interesting. So
and yeah, you're right. And I think the character designs go a long way to make you like how they're designed makes you like the characters
for sure. Yeah,
a lot. I think my final thought on this is, as you read, it's a comedy that just does its serious moments so well while staying within the theme of eating monsters, right? Like that's the core of it, and it continues, and they resolve their problems using their theme. This series is magic, and the author took a lot of inspiration and is in love with kind of Western fantasy. So you'll see a lot of, like, if you played any kind of Baldur's Gate games.
I mean, Baldur's Gate is just Dungeons and Dragons, so yeah, for sure.
Yeah, D&D, like anything like that, you'll have a big appreciation for this.
Yeah, I mean, we've encountered like slime, cockatrice. I don't remember what
cockatrice. That herb that screams.
Yeah, mandrakes, right? You'll know mandrakes if you've read Harry Potter and stuff. But it's it's really good on the character design point, and then we can move on. There's an idea in character design that there are triangle, squares, and circle characters, and the three initial main party members here are actually all circle characters, and that's what makes them attractive, quote unquote, cute, relatable.
They are cute.
Yeah, the dwarf guy whose name I'm forgetting, he has a weird name. It's like Sensui or something like that. He's more of a square character, but he's still interesting. But yeah, the other three, I mean, even even the sort of lead knight guy is very rounded. The elf is very rounded. The halfling is very rounded. They're all very round characters, which round characters are generally your cute, lovable things. And so everyone in this series seems very cute and lovable. So when they get into violent predicaments or whatever, that sort of contrasts well with it.
And the funniest thing is, the cutest one of all of them, like personality-wise, is the dwarf.
Yeah.
He's adorable. And I like that Chilchuck, the halfling, doesn't do combat at all. He's literally just there for traps and opening shit. Like,
yeah,
that's
I haven't seen him.
function.
I haven't seen him fight very much. Well, he did like the last chapter I read. He maybe did like a little bit, but it was more like he triggered a trap that hurt something. But yeah.
And you won't see him fight very much because he doesn't do that.
Interesting. Cool.
Yeah, like that's not why he's there on the party. So
Yeah.
I like that. That's cool.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to reading more of this. So, all right, your one more thing you saw.
Yeah.
The menu.
My bad. I'm just a huge fan of Delicious and Dungeons. So
Yeah, we'll talk more about it. Like I said, I'm
Yeah.
only about 20 chapters in, so there'll be more of it in the future.
Yeah, this movie is. I don't know how many people have watched this movie. I kind of caught a trailer on accident, and it seemed interesting. How I would describe it is like Midsommar, if it was a if it was a comedy too. You know,
Yeah.
The movie itself is pretty funny. It's a dark comedy, first and foremost. But the dark part of it is dark. What a redundant sentence, but I can't describe it
That
any
is
better.
the key
without
defining
it.
feature of a dark comedy is that the darkness.
It is dark.
Yes.
I don't want to say anything about the movie in case people want to watch it.
It seems like it's got
speaks for
twists and
itself.
turns, and so yeah, I'm really curious
Yeah.
to see it when it hits streaming. So
Yeah, check it out. I don't think it is spectacular by any means, but I think it's a good watch, and I don't even know how I'd rate it. I can't give it one. But I definitely check it out again at some point. So once it hits streaming, I recommend everyone just to give it a watch if you don't mind. I don't know, dark themes in movies like this.
yeah, dark comedies are black comedies, dark comedies, very specific type. I know what to expect because I've seen a lot of them. Like In Bruges is one of my favorite movies. That's a dark comedy, and that's got suicide and violence.
Movie?
Is that what?
Isn't that an Oscar-winning movie? In Bruges?
Maybe it might have won an Oscar. I'm not sure
I've
if it
heard
did.
of it, but I have no idea what it is.
Have you not seen In Bruges?
No.
Oh, you got to watch it. In Bruges is so good.
Is
like-
that a place in France?
It's in. Where is it? Where's the
I'm showing my geographical ignorance here.
Belgium? I think.
Oh, okay.
Is that right? Bruges is in Belgium. Yeah.
Colin Farrell. I like
Yeah,
that
I mean
guy.
it's got famous people in it. It's got Ralph Fiennes, who's also in the menu, is in this movie. I think he likes doing dark comedies. Yeah, don't Google too much about it, but it isn't that twisty really, but it's one of my favorite movies and it's a dark comedy, so
Hey, you want to answer Omega Master's question here since we're ending anyway? Do you think Naruto needs an anime remake or any old anime in general?
I think Naruto and Boruto deserve to never show up in.
You know what? This is a bad question for you because you haven't read it. You don't have the.
I've seen
fanboy
some of it.
energy.
I don't. Naruto, of the big three, I feel like Naruto would be the one that I would like the least. I think I would enjoy Bleach more, and I don't think I would enjoy Bleach.
I don't think you'd enjoy Bleach either.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's end it in this just for Omega Master's comment. I think Naruto's fine, but what old anime would you give a remake if you could?
Ooh. I think we should go back and pay respect to one of the OGs. I would like to see a remade, slightly updated Fist of the North Star.
Fist of the North Star, huh? Yeah,
I think
that's
so. JoJo is the season 1 of JoJo is essentially like a rip-off of Fist of the North Star. Hamon is like a straight rip of that power system. I think if we redid Fist of the North Star, it would be. I think everyone who watches JoJo would like it. I think everyone would go like, "Wow, this is cool," even if it is kind of like I've seen this before because it's so influential in that kind of seinen actiony type stuff.
yeah,
But I mean,
choice. Yeah.
I mean, like Baki and all these things are super influenced by Fist of the North Star. The character designs are all these thick guys. A funny connection, speaking of Dungeon Meshi, D&D, me playing D&D, so I ran a D&D game as a dungeon master. One of my players played a monk, and he named his character after the main character of Fist of the North Star, whose name is Kenshiro. And so that was like my introduction to Fist of the North Star, was my overpowered monk player playing Kenshiro. So I think that would be a series to bring back, because I think it's old and dated. There is an old anime. It's not very good. I've seen a few clips from it. What about you? What older series would you bring back to reanimate in modern times? Basically, what old series would you come back and have Mappa animate? Because they're just going to do everything now.
Yeah, true. I just responded to Omega Master here. I think Naruto's good as is, especially the pain fights, and later they get crazy, and Boruto has some good animation, but I don't really watch Boruto. But what I was thinking, like when he asked, I was thinking Yu Yu Hakusho maybe, but no, Yu Yu Hakusho is perfect.
Yeah,
why ruin perfect?
Is that old? I mean, it is 20 years old, but is that old enough? I guess that's older than Naruto.
It's old. It's old, man.
I mean, mid-90s, yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking of like before we were born old, as opposed to when we were young.
Here's my remake. I would remake Hoshi no Samidare, or Lucifer and the Biscuit Hammer. It had an anime this year.
Yeah, this year.
And it sucked. So make it again, but better.
Try again.
Damn it, make it.
Literally just try again. That's not going to happen, yeah.
Yeah, cop-out answer aside, I would ask them to...
There's an obvious answer here.
I was going to say Trigun, but they're doing that. Okay, hold on. Give me one shot, and...
I mean, the obvious answer is this is one of the most popular seinen ever, and it has never had a good anime. No, Monster anime is good.
I never had a good anime.
Never had a good...
Berserk.
It's Berserk, right? That's the obvious
how did I not
answer.
think of that? You're right.
Yeah,
you nailed it.
I thought of, and that's, again, old from the 80s. Berserk also kind of influenced by Fist of the North Star. Maybe published in the same magazine. I think they're published in the same magazine, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay, no. Discussion over. Berserk. You're right.
There is a world soon coming. Maybe this should have been one of my predictions. In 2023, we will get an announcement of a non-CG Berserk anime starting at the start, or starting at Golden Age. No, it should start at the start. The first season should be the Black Swordsman.
Yeah.
The first season should all be Black Swordsman, and then season 2 should be Golden Age, or maybe 2 and 3. Golden Age is pretty long, but yeah, I don't understand who's managing Berserk in such a way that they aren't shopping. Hey, just make an anime of Berserk to Mappa, to Madhouse, to Production IG, to Ufotable, UFO Table. One of these companies, like, how would you not grab this? Berserk
I don't know.
Is as popular as it is without a good anime. Almost everything else that is popular is that popular because the anime audience is larger. Yeah, it's Berserk for sure.
I think it's this, Bruce. It's like, you know how One Punch Man has innately more audience, like you're going to sell it to a larger group of people than you would Berserk because it's dark. One Punch Man didn't even have a good season 2 because it's hard to get like people to get to Murata's level.
Yeah.
Getting to Miura's level while not having the selling force of One Punch Man is an even harder task, I have to imagine. But it's money on the table. You're right. You're fucking right. It's so popular. Make your money, people. I
will say the challenge, on the other side of it's very challenging to make something that stands up to Miura's art, is that every single animator would work on the Berserk anime like probably for free.
Mm-hmm.
Because one of the things that made One Punch Man in season 1 so great is that all of the animators love Murata and his art because, and I went over this in my action paneling video, is that Murata's kind of an animator at heart. He uses all these animation techniques and influences to do his paneling, and so people say that and they go, like, yes, this guy is like the best action artist in the biz. I want to be a part of the manga or the anime version of that. In the same
it's
way,
right?
when March Comes In Like a Lion, when that anime aired, they had a lot of really big name animators and manga artists do like end cards and things for that, because that was like a golden child baby for other manga artists, right? March Comes In Like a Lion is notorious for being like your favorite manga artist's favorite manga for years and years. Now it doesn't get published as much anymore, but back, I don't know, 6 or 8 years ago, it was the thing that all the manga artists love because it was so like gorgeous and nicely drawn. And so when that got an anime, a lot of people worked on that were big names. And like I said, there were end cards like Arakawa, who's Full Metal Alchemist, did an end card. A bunch of big famous artists did end cards.
Niso Isin did one.
Yeah, and so all that to say that Berserk, if you just announced, hey, we're making a Berserk anime and we're going to treat it right, all of these animators are going to, if you ask an animator to do it, they're not going to say, oh, I don't know, I don't have time, I'm working on something else. They're going to say, I will make time. And so I actually think it would be pretty easy to make a Berserk anime if you just cared.
The problem is these guys, they wouldn't do it for free because these guys get paid like $30K a year. But
but
it's do you know like the Berserk anime that was like shit, the CGI one?
The CGI one, yeah, from 2 or 3 years ago, yeah.
It was given to like a completely new studio with new animators, like fresh out of college or whatever.
And they, because it was 3D, they can't ask all these hand animators with years of experience who were like, I mean, the thing about Berserk is like, I mean, we're talking about guys like is it Yoshinari is like the trigger guy. Like he was animating explosions as like an 18, 19, 20-year-old, and Berserk had been out for like 6 years. Like that's how old Berserk is. And so you've got these guys who were like massively influential through anime in the 90s growing up, who have now influenced another generation in the 2000s and the 2010s and now the 2020s. There have been like 3 or 4 generations of people who all have had access to Berserk and have probably read it and who know what it is and understand it. I don't know. It's just like, it should be so easy to give this to a studio that just says we're going to hand animate it. All these hand animators that have been around for 30 or 40 years are going to come out of retirement to work on Berserk
and
not
especially
for free,
now that especially now that Miro is dead, I'm sure people will do it just to pay respects, right? Like
that too. Yeah. I mean, absolutely.
Don't give it to like a studio full of absolutely new hires. It's like not fair to them. I felt bad for them.
No, it isn't. And I also think that, I mean, not that the younger generation can't enjoy Berserk, but Berserk is even pre us, right? I mean, we're in our early 30s. Berserk, the first chapter was published, I think, in 1984, like 6 or 7 years before we were born. And so, like, there's the generation above us, right, who's in their 40s, mid 40s, late 40s, early 50s. Like I was talking, like the Yoshinari types. They grew up on Berserk and they knew about Berserk and they saw it. Even we're disconnected by one thing. And so I think, it should be so easy to just get a good organization team behind it. Then you just ask all the best animators from the 90s and the 2000s and even the 80s, like, hey, come draw the Berserk anime, come do it. We're doing it. And they would all say yes. Like no one would say no to that.
Bro, I just felt bad for the newbies because they got really sad when everyone was shitting all over Berserk. And it's not their fault.
They weren't given a fair situation at all. So
yeah, it's like being thrown into something and being like, hey, be the CEO of this company. You have no experience. It's like
set up to fail from the start.
Anyway, we're running long, but
Berserk,
this is
Berserk tangent at the end. But yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. That's it for the show this week. Thanks for listening or watching. Of course, we're always live on the White Gray Black channel on YouTube every Monday night at 8. We will be taking 2 weeks off now. It is the Christmas and New Year's season. We have, as of this podcast, we have had 2 viewers total, so no one's missing much yet.
Oh yeah.
But if you'd like to be a viewer or a listener, please keep listening, watching. We really do appreciate it. If you appreciate us or me and the things that we do here, be sure to check out the Patreon. That's patreon.com/WGB Manga. If you're watching us, don't forget you can check us out in audio only on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. We're just a White, Gray, Black weekly manga podcast. And if you're listening to us there, don't forget that there is a YouTube channel also you can check out. You should find it attached to the YouTube channel White, Gray, Black. That's the one that I run. As always, thanks for being with us. Thanks for listening. Thanks for enjoying our tangents, I hope. And don't forget to read more manga.
And final thought. Shout out to Omega Master for writing us a question.
Yeah.
It was fun talking. Thanks for joining us, Omega Master. Join us again next week. And if you guys do want to chat with us, we'd be happy to talk at the end of a pod or something.
I'd love to have more comments there if we could help. We could follow up at the end with all of them or something. Yeah, it'd be great.
Yeah. Feel free to write in, and specifically to Omega Master, have a good holiday, man. I hope it's a good one, and I'll catch everyone else later.
Adios.
Bye.